Tanking in the NBA is not just losing, it is losing with a purpose, a strategy so blatant it can make you question the integrity of the league. And when it comes to the most shameless tanks in recent history, there's one team that instantly comes to mind. The Philadelphia 76ers during the infamous process era. This was not subtle. The Sixers literally signed G League players and random guys off the street just to lose games. Their goal was clear: climb the draft lottery and land franchise-changing talent. What made it even crazier was that their GM, Sam Hinkie, openly admitted it. He was not hiding. He was transparent about the plan to rebuild via tanking. It got so severe that the NBA eventually had to step in, forcing Hinkie out because the league could not allow such blatant manipulation to go unchecked. Fast forward to today, and tanking has not disappeared. It has just evolved. Despite measures the NBA has taken to discourage it, roughly a third of the league still finds ways to sneak in or openly execute tanks. One of the most glaring examples right now is the Utah Jazz. But before you roll your eyes and assume they're doing it just for kicks, there's a little more nuance here. The Jazz have had legitimate injuries, star players sidelined, games where they're still competitive, but the strategy is there. They're playing within the rules, but the motivation behind some of these moves is hard to miss. Here's the kicker. The Jazz owe a first-round pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder if it does not land within the top 8 picks. Their pick is top 8 protected. So, if it falls within the top 8, the Jazz keep it. If it doesn't, it goes to the Thunder. This setup essentially incentivizes losing, and the Jazz have leaned into it hard. But before we get into their current antics, let us take a look back at some of the most ridiculous, eye-popping examples of tanking we've seen in recent NBA history. Starting with the Jazz, the 2024-25 season was pure spectacle. The organization had its eyes on rebuilding, knowing that with Larry Markin's injuries and a roster struggling to make the playoffs, this was their window to hit the reset button via the draft. What happened by the end of that season was, quite honestly, one of the most extreme cases of tanking anyone has ever witnessed. By March 1st, 2025, the standings were telling. The Jazz were at the bottom of the Western Conference, with 2 teams in the East even worse. These teams had relatively close records, all terrible, but the Jazz took it to a whole new level. In their final 23 games, Utah lost 21. Yes, 21 out of 23. Their record for that stretch was an absurd 2-21, and they closed the season as the worst team across both conferences. While trying to be somewhat discreet, their efforts did not go unnoticed. The league fined them $100,000 on March 5th for violating the player participation policy. Larry Markin had been sitting out despite being healthy, and it did not stop there. March 14th delivered one of the most surreal games of the century, the Jazz versus the Toronto Raptors. By the second half, both teams were benching their best players because they were playing too well. Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley each had 20 points in 25 minutes for the Raptors, and they were pulled. On Utah's side, Markin and Colin Stone were limited to just 18 and 20 minutes. The game became a surreal contest of benchwarmers against benchwarmers. Fans groaned every time a basket went in, almost wishing their team would lose faster. It was a spectacle that defied all logic. 2 teams trying so hard to lose that winning became embarrassing. By late March and early April, the Jazz doubled down even further. DNPs for healthy players became routine. Walker Kessler sat out the final 2 weeks of the season, and Kyle Filipowski's minutes skyrocketed. The team had become a mockery of competitive basketball. And the results? Ironically, even after all this effort, Utah still fell to the 5th pick in the draft. But the pattern did not stop there. 2026 saw more of the same. Against the Hawks and Magic, Markin sat most of the second half because he was performing too well. Even an accidental win against the Miami Heat, with third-stringers decimating the team, underscored how absurd the situation had become. The Jazz were tanking so aggressively that it started to feel like a social experiment rather than an NBA season. If the Jazz are extreme, the 22-23 Portland Trail Blazers were another story entirely. This was Damian Lillard's final season in Portland before his eventual return, and the Blazers orchestrated a tank unlike any other. What makes this story unique is that Lillard, the franchise cornerstone, was vocally against it. A fan even suggested on Twitter that Portland should tank for a chance to draft top prospect Scoot Henderson, and Lillard bluntly responded, "No way." He even met with the front office to argue against taking a hiatus to intentionally lose games. But new GM Joe Cronin pushed forward regardless, deciding the team needed a rebuild through the draft. In the final 10 games, Lillard did not play a single minute, and the Blazers went 1-9 to finish the season. Remarkably, despite this, Portland's record of 33-49 still indicated a team capable of competing. They just deliberately chose not to. And their reward for this calculated tank, Scoot Henderson. A rare case where tanking and front office vision aligned perfectly. Then there's the 2020-21 Toronto Raptors. Fresh off a championship less than 2 years prior, the Raptors realized their window to contend had closed. This season was also shortened due to the pandemic, which complicated matters further. The Raptors, as Canada's only team, were quarantined in Tampa, Florida, playing in empty arenas and living in hotels. By February 2021, more than half the team, including coaching staff, contracted COVID. Games were postponed constantly, leaving Toronto barely able to field a team. By the trade deadline, the organization pivoted toward tanking. They traded away Norman Powell, one of their healthiest and highest-performing players, because keeping him risked winning too many games, which would harm their draft positioning. In his place, they acquired Gary Trent Jr., a young player with potential. The strategy flew under the radar but paid off. They missed the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, but landed Scotty Barnes in the 2021 draft. Looking back even further, the 2017-18 season, dubbed the Gold Rush year, saw multiple teams eyeing a historic draft class. The Memphis Grizzlies, Phoenix Suns, and Dallas Mavericks all took part in dramatic tanks. Memphis's approach was one of the most covert in history. After Mike Conley's injury, they used it as a pretext to give DNPs to key players, and handed minutes to fringe players like Maris Teague and Xavier Rathan-Mays, who were essentially placeholders to lose games. The strategy worked. They finished with the 4th pick and drafted Jaren Jackson Jr., future Defensive Player of the Year. The Suns, meanwhile, went all in on the tanking formula by sitting Devin Booker for months and playing Josh Jackson and Dragan Bender massive minutes. Their losses directly correlated with how much time these bust players spent on the court. By the end of the season, Phoenix secured the number 1 pick, although they controversially chose DeAndre Ayton. And the Dallas Mavericks? They lost 13 of their final 16 games by overplaying their worst players. Late in the season, undrafted players like Aaron Harrison and Jonathan Millay logged absurd minutes just to ensure losses, securing a favorable draft position. Finally, an honorable mention goes to the 2011-12 Golden State Warriors. Their tank was born out of necessity. They had a top 7 protected draft pick, and if it fell outside the top 7, they'd lose it to the Utah Jazz. Combine this with a shortened, lockout-impacted season, Steph Curry's ankle injury, and the midseason trade of Monta Ellis, and suddenly the Warriors had all the ingredients for a strategic tank. They finished 23-43, kept their pick, and selected Harrison Barnes. What makes all these cases fascinating is how creative, absurd, and sometimes shocking teams can be when intentionally losing. Some are blatant and shameless, like the Jazz and Sixers. Others are covert, executed with surgical precision, like the Grizzlies or Warriors. But the common thread is the same. The draft lottery incentivizes losing, and teams will go to extreme lengths to secure high picks. So, what does this mean for the NBA moving forward? Tanking is not going anywhere anytime soon. Teams have learned how to navigate the rules, sit players strategically, and rebuild with minimal scrutiny. The league has tried reforms, changes to draft lottery odds, but as we've seen, it is often just a minor speed bump. The incentives remain too strong, and the pressure to rebuild quickly in a highly competitive league ensures tanking will persist. So, now it is your turn. Which team do you think executed the most outrageous tank of all time? Is it Utah's recent antics, the historic Sixers process, or some of the sneaky tanks like Memphis and Golden State? Let me know in the comments below, because when it comes to NBA tanking, the story is never short on drama, strategy, and sheer audacity.